Hey there guys, welcome to another video. It's great to be back. Today's video is it's going to focus on one of the most important aspects of choosing a particular MBA degree. So even before you actually think about choosing, the particular school, you actually need to think about something which is very, very important. And this is kind of like the thumb rule of real estate. So it's all about location, location, and location. So before you actually think about the school that you're planning to go into, one of the most important things is to think about what is the continent that you're going to end up on, what is the country that you're going to live in, and then what is the city that you're actually going to be based in for those 2 years of doing your MBA. And I think this is really important because one of the most important things about choosing an MBA degree is to make sure that you're in a city which actually excites you, which motivates you, and also is a location where you can see yourself spending the next 24 months as you go through your MBA. And I think, like, if you were to think of this in a very music kind of way, what you'll actually realize is that you actually want to be in a city which is very livable. So if like every night you should be in the zone where you can actually play New York, New York by Frank Sinatra, and you're actually singing to those and dancing to that particular city just because it's so vibrant. And a vibrant city could be one which has a lot of culture. It's got a lot of it's got a very young demographic. It's got amazing people that you can interact with. It's got pubs that you can go to. It's got restaurants where you can eat. It's got museums which you can visit, and it's also overall got just a very nice vibe in terms of being safe as you kind of go and settle down there. Some people prefer to move to locations where they get to pick on a new language, and that's great. But if you're someone who's not into that hustle culture, it always makes sense to choose a particular city which offers your native language, or at least offers English as kind of like a typical language. And the US is a great location for that because pretty much everyone speaks English. If you look at Southeast Asia, essentially Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand are great locations and great countries for that. If you're looking at Europe, you'll probably have to look at countries like the UK. Particularly a lot of the schools that are based out of London, they do offer this kind of opportunity. But as you kind of look at other European schools, particularly INSEAD, which is located in France, you'll realize that there's some amount of fluency that you do require in the local language. So you have to pick up French, not just for for your particular academic degree, but also because when you're living in that city, it's important to know the local dialect as you kind of go around. Similarly, if you were to explore China, it's really important to pick up Mandarin, and when you're looking at Tsinghua University or other universities out there. I think the second thing that's really important is that it should be a well-connected city. Like, you don't want to be in the middle of nowhere. One of the best things about doing the MBA degree is that you get to travel a lot, and you have a lot of trips which you can take with your batchmates, or you can take with your friends or people that you meet on your MBA journey. Obviously, I didn't have that opportunity, particularly because I was doing it during COVID and there was a pandemic. But just the fact that when I actually moved to Singapore, I had the opportunity to actually go to multiple places on weekend getaways, just for the simple reason that it's so well connected. You can get flight tickets out which are like $100 or $120, and it's not very expensive to actually take those flights out, spend a weekend in a city in Malaysia or Thailand or Vietnam for that matter, and then eventually come back to Singapore and go back to work on a Monday. So it's really important to be in a connected city, just because you have the opportunity to leave on a jet plane as you please, explore that particular region, And this is something that's going to be very prevalent, whether it's in the US or it's in Europe, because typically you do have lighter semesters where you can travel. There's a lot of exchange programs, but at the same time there's a lot of personal travel that you can do as a part of this particular journey. And I think the biggest learnings actually come from exploring different cultures, looking at different meeting people from different communities, understanding their life stories, and just exploring this, all that these different cities and countries have to offer. I think probably the second last point on this one is that you need to be in a city which is cost efficient, right? Like, or it's pretty much like, you'll be living on the love of the common people, right? Because you don't want to be in a very expensive city which is very exorbitant, couple that with a very high cost of academic tuition, and then essentially what you're just worried about is how soon can you pay off your particular loan, right? So you always want to be in a city which has a very strong job market, where you have a lot of international companies working in, you have a lot of expats living and working in that particular city. And the reason for this is that if you're in a smaller country, right, or you're not in a typical country where there are a lot of cities which offer you those jobs, you always want to secure your future post the MBA, because there is going to be a period where you have to pay off your loans, right? And of course, like for those particular things, it's really important that you make sure that you choose the city that you're going to be based out of very carefully. So for instance, Singapore, Hong Kong in the APAC region have very strong job markets. There's a lot of job opportunities. They're very inviting to foreigners. Likewise for the likes of cities such as Sydney, Melbourne. In New Zealand, you've got cities like Auckland, which are very inviting. They have a very vibrant foreign community. There's a lot of expats working there. That's also the case in countries such as Thailand with Bangkok. You also have a similar trend in markets like Europe, where a lot of people will typically do their masters in a city like London, and then since the city is so large and there's a lot of companies based out of there, it's very easy to find a job out there. A lot of people do also move around. So for instance, there's people who will typically do their masters in the United States, probably not in one of the major metros, but then they'll typically go to those cities. So they'll end up working either in the Bay Area, or they'll choose to work in New York or Chicago, essentially markets which offer a very high wage range, but then what they also come with is a higher cost of living. So exploring markets which are not that expensive is obviously a good idea if you want to optimize for cost. So a lot of my friends from undergrad actually have done their masters in the US, and then they've explored countries which offer a lower tax structure, because it just helps them kind of add on to the income that they'll have. So they might have got a 10 or 20% higher income in the US, but then that also comes with higher tax rates which they have to grapple with as compared to some countries in let's say Southeast Asia. Singapore is an example, Dubai or the UAE is another example where you have very low tax rates, but then obviously there's a slight differential in terms of the income that you will be making as compared to some of these very high cost markets. And I think the last one is that you want to make sure that the MBA program it's not money for nothing, right? Like, you want to make sure that you're optimized in terms of what's going in terms of the input, in terms of your time that you're spending, the wages that you're missing out on for that particular time period, and then there has to be an output in terms of being able to kind of make that money back. And all of the 3 points that I kind of raised earlier, they're probably very important when it comes to thinking about those things. To kind of sum up, I think in the end, it's all about building a wonderful life for yourself. I mean, that's the whole intent of doing a master's program, to kind of get that designation bump, to get to shift industries, to make more money. But then at the end of the day, it's the bottom line is that if you're not happy, none of it is worth it. So always think about the school, the location. It all kind of boils down to making sure that you're in a city which makes you happy. Personally, I think, like, when I moved to Singapore, I was able to find that happiness. A lot of people find that happiness in other cities, because there are inherent factors and different things that kind of make those cities very attractive for them. So you do need to, like, think of that and think about the long term. So think about 5-10 years, and then based on that, of course, make your decision. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please do like, share, subscribe. There's a link in the description below, which kind of also has the LinkedIn post that I've been working on. This is probably the third one, which is focused more on choosing the right location as you kind of look at doing your MBA. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.